Now, before I really start diving into the TV series, there are a few things I need to say before I start. I would have mentioned a few of these things in the previous video, but frankly, it had already become a little over half an hour long as it was. First off, Koreans don't typically like this show, mostly because it doesn't show their country in the most flattering light. On the one hand, South Korea in particular has become one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world. On the other hand, during the actual Korean War, all of Korea was pretty poor. Add in the fact that this show was designed to draw imagery and feelings from Vietnam, and most of what you're going to see of Korea is going to be poor farming villages. Secondly, while there are more callbacks than any show before this, and there were some cast changes over the 11 years it ran, it's still designed if you're just walking in on an episode, you don't really need to have seen any of the stuff from previously. With the exception of a few of the two-parter episodes, you can say that it's a bunch of standalone stuff that all have the same general theme, that war is hell, and these people are gonna go a little crazy to avoid going completely loco.
Ladies and gentlemen, take my advice. Pull down your pants and slide on the ice. See you Thursday.
Oh, before I forget, there's a character in the first season that doesn't last long. A black doctor named Spearchucker. He was tossed out and completely forgotten when the writers checked and didn't find any evidence of black doctors in the historical Korean War. While I will grant that there probably weren't that many black doctors in the war back then, I'd also argue that since this show really isn't about the Korean War, going for historical accuracy is a little iffy. Still, considering the various episodes where the team screws over some racist bigots, and the surprisingly respectful portrayals of homosexuals in the series, this is probably one of the least discriminatory shows made during the entire Cold War. Now that that's out of the way, let's start talking about the various characters in this series who got some mileage, one by one. And we'll start with Trapper John McIntyre, who was the ace of the camp in the movie, and the only chest cutter.
Which one of you is going to tell him he's not the champ anymore? You're a pistol.
Well, he's not quite the best surgeon in the camp anymore, and Hawkeye's also a chest cutter. But he's still damn good, and they gave him a bit more personality in the series. He's a womanizing married man who jokes around plenty, and has 2 daughters waiting for him at home.
You're a rat for not taking me to Tokyo with you.
I'm a married man, honey. I only go out with girls that don't know that.
While he barely has more respect for women than he does for the army, he's certainly good with kids, and does all he can for his patients. Of course, if someone endangers one of his patients, he gets a dangerous look in his eyes, and might just go off the deep end. All in all, a good man to be around so long as you aren't a woman old enough for him to screw. Though, don't worry, ladies. While Trapper doesn't take no for an answer, he won't just go rape you like his book version.
Shut up. Rough, huh?
Plenty.
Want a puff?
Thanks.
I'm taking 10 minutes.
I'm on 10 minutes.
Between us, we got 20 minutes. Let's go.
Next up, the only other captain that came back from the movie, Benjamin Franklin Hawkeye Pierce. Arguably, he's the main character of this show, a decision made even before his actor, Alan Alda, became one of the writers. He becomes chief surgeon instead of Trapper and went from episode 1 all the way to the series finale.
Some men are born to greatness. Others have it thrust upon them. And then there are those of us who got it both ways. Get those crowds back behind the toilet paper.
Unlike the movie, he's not a married man, and while at the start it's mentioned that he has a still living mom and sister, eventually those two are forgotten, and he ends up being the lone child of a currently single father. While part of me kinda dislikes that kind of core change to a character, considering the number of moments that Hawkeye has over the course of the series where you really get to feel for him, it's surprisingly easy to forget that something so major about his home life was changed without a word.
Boy, you really are a sicko. Mental.
Just because I spend most of my waking hours fixing up small wounds so they can go back and get bigger and better wounds, you think I'm mental? Ausgespielt? Bughouse? Tetched? Milky in the filbert? Of course I am. Wouldn't you be, Lieutenant Nightingale? Goes against my training to say take 2 aspirin and go get yourself killed. What would Hippocrates say? What would Socrates say? And what would you say if I asked you if you wanted to go into the linen closet for several minutes of heavy breathing?
He's kind of a jackass, and one of the biggest womanizers you'll ever see, but he does get humbled a number of times through the series, and he does learn a number of lessons as the series goes on. His biggest concern is keeping as many people alive as he can in the war, regardless of whose side they're on, and he'll do whatever he can to make sure that's the case.
What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm taking out that guy's appendix in there. You gonna get into your whites or what?
You're talking about removing a healthy organ.
No, I figure his appendix is about as sick as his mind.
Doctors aren't supposed to take bodies apart. They're supposed to put them together.
Why, so guys like that can take them apart again? You heard him. He's gonna take those kids up that hill tomorrow and send them back to us in pieces.
That man is crazy. That doesn't make this right. Some things are wrong, and they're always wrong.
Fine, it's wrong. But there are going to be 100 boys still alive tomorrow. Go tell them how wrong it is.
Damn it! Why don't you just stab him? Cutting into a healthy body is mutilation.
Don't give me that. There aren't doctors back home who do unnecessary operations. You never heard of that? And for what? For a few bucks.
Next up is the ever-dislikable Frank Burns, and by God, he really became a hateful bastard between the movie and the show. He's almost cartoonishly hypocritical, greedy, cowardly, and pro-army.
You seriously want to press these charges, Frank?
You bet I do.
Insubordination. Failure to salute a superior officer.
I'm a major, Pierce is a captain. He's never saluted me once.
Frank, the nearest thing to a salute on this post is the camp mutt scratching the fleas behind his ears.
Seriously, the biggest problems we saw with him in the movie were the fact that he prayed longer than his tent mates liked, and he never accepted any responsibility when something went wrong. And worst of all, he degenerates in the series from cartoon schmuck to incompetent man-child that never should have become a doctor in the first place, much less a major in a United States military hospital.
Colonel, I protest this attack on Major Burns' character in his absence.
Actually, we're attacking his absence of character.
They try a few times to give some reasons for his issues, like mentioning how bad a parent his father might have been, or how he still depends on his mother for all his decision-making, and there is an episode or two where he does garner some sympathy, but all in all, he doesn't leave a moment too soon at the end of the 5th season. I just wish he'd left in a more befitting manner.
Bye, Frank.
Hey, come on, I'm responsible for that.
You seem a trifle irked.
The Army, in its infinite wisdom, has not only cleared Frank of the charges, they have assigned him to a veterans hospital in Indiana and promoted him to lieutenant colonel.
Of course, we can't talk about Frank Burns without mentioning Margaret Houlihan, where he doesn't change much and a good deal of that change is for the worse. She changed a lot, and for the better. At the start of the series, she's little more than Frank's bag, someone who's likely to be just another smile on his face that his wife will never understand.
Captain Pierce, Major Burns would like to talk to you as acting commander.
Good, I like I'm listening.
He went and got him, Hawk.
I bet he found him double parked in an erogenous zone.
What a mouth.
But as the series goes on, she becomes more and more independent, sympathetic, strong, and intelligent. Seriously, It gets to the point that you can forget she was ever called Hot Lips at all. And I get the feeling after a certain point, if anyone called her Hot Lips again, that person would be lynched by everyone else in the camp. She is the only other character that went from the absolute beginning to the absolute end of the series, and managed to go from an annoying hypocrite to someone it's hard not to respect.
Here's to me.
Still, I have to admit that the character development for her stalled near the end of the series. Can't really give an exact episode for when in the series she stopped, sometime in the 9th or 10th season, and unfortunately her character was still caught somewhere between wanting someone to lean on and wanting to stand on her own, not making the decision of which she wanted. Granted, people can end up a little indecisive if they're actually between two very different modes of life. But after a certain point, it's like they stopped caring about that aspect of the character. Maybe they outright forgot finishing that piece of Houlihan's growth. She was already the most developed character in a series that lasted 11 years, a series that made its episodes to be standalone stories, so I can kinda let it slide.
Major, I was just about
to go on report, Lieutenant. I put you on a detail to help secure this camp.
Oh, Major.
We're preparing for a crisis, Lieutenant. That is the worst time to owe Major me. Now, my nurses are going to pull their weight through this. Is that understood? Good, then move!
Oh, Margaret, it's you. I thought it was the storm.
Next up, we have Father Francis Mulcahy, the camp chaplain. He's another who went a long time through the series, from Season 1 to Season 11, and he somehow manages to have boxing and gambling as his hobbies. Hell, he even manages to be a good therapist even to a professional psychiatrist. Of course, if he's got one weakness at all, it's the fact that he's annoyed he's stuck as a lieutenant. Understandable, since last time I checked, being a chaplain was to make you a captain right off the bat.
Father, you asked me to tell you when the promotion list came in.
Oh, yes. I was hoping that this time I might get
They
my...
passed you over again, Padre.
Oh. Oh, they did. Well, I wasn't really expecting anything.
He does eventually get promoted near the tail end of the series, and always, well, almost always will be able to lend you an ear if you need one. Kinda wish I had more to say about him, but there's not much to him. He's a steady rock in a storm, always has the best of intentions, and is either the straight man for someone else's joke or the butt of one. I can only think of a few moments where circumstances allowed him to show what he was made of, and while those were some rather awesome moments, considering the fact that every other major character in the series got moments to shine more frequently than him, it's understandable he'd have a low opinion of himself in a camp full of amazing people. Any moment he starts to seem like more than a side character is a setup for him doing something particularly extraordinary.
I wish there was something I could do to help.
Well, since we don't have a prayer, how about a couple of novenas and a pentathlon?
We might be able to arrange a drop.
It's going to take a lot more than a drop, Padre.
No, I meant make a drop with the black market for pentathlon.
Not advisable. Those boys play rough.
Man, they cut off your nose to spite your face.
And anyway, who'd be low enough to have connections with those tarantulas?
Well, as a matter of fact, me.
You?
Why, you devil, you.
Well, on occasion, I've had to deal through the black market to obtain supplies for the orphans. You can get practically anything.
Yeah, but you have to give them practically everything.
Not always. You'd be surprised what a priest can get away with.
Now, the one character who didn't change actors from the movie, Walter Radar O'Reilly. He pretty much runs the camp, especially in the first 3 seasons, and somehow acts a little more innocent than before after a certain point early on. The second boy has an attempt to stay sane.
Okay, listen, maybe you could help me. This is 477th? 477th MASH. How long have you been over here? 2 hours and you're on the radio already? A rookie. We need some sodium pentothal. Sodium pentothal. It's an anesthesia. It's the stuff that makes you go to sleep. What do you mean you can't give it to me? You don't even know what it is. Can I speak to your CO, please? His name is Colonel Hooten. Why do they send these kids?
Radar tends to predict people pretty well, and a few times it's joked that the Fink has some psychic powers, and he always knows when helicopters are coming before anyone else does. If you want anything done, or you just want something, Radar's the person to make it happen more often than not. At least, until he finally leaves. As a funny side note, while the actor's face doesn't change from the movie to his exit from the series, he had to keep something on top of his head especially near the end, since he was growing bald. Really? The youngest looking member of the cast was going bald? It takes a bit for the camp to adjust once he leaves, but this old farm boy had to go home and be a man that would help his mother at the farm. Now, when it comes to Radar, I think this clip describes it best.
Yes, sir. Radar! Yes, sir. Damn it! Radar! How many times have I told you not to come in here before I call you?
Well, I don't like to be late, sir.
How can you be late if you come in here before I even know I want you?
Ours is not the question why, sir.
What? Why? What?
What? You wanted these transfer orders, sir?
No, I want the transfer orders.
Yes, sir.
Those ones that you've got there in your hand.
Now to talk about Colonel Henry Blake. He's still pretty much a pushover like in the movie, but he has his moments of knowing what to say.
If I had the answer, I'd be at the Mayo Clinic. Does this place look like the Mayo Clinic? Look, all I know is what they taught me at command school. There are certain rules about a war. And rule number 1 is young men die. And rule number 2 is doctors can't change rule number 1.
Sure, he's a bit more loose with marriage than is socially acceptable back here in the States, but as far as I can tell, he keeps it in his pants, which is more than I can say for Trapper. And he's more like a kindly uncle to the camp than the man who's supposed to make the big decisions. I'm not going to spoil anything about how he leaves. Kind of funny to say something about spoilers for a show made all the way in the 70s, but what can you do? All I'm going to say about it is that the last episode of the 3rd season is dedicated to saying goodbye to Blake. And if you've seen all the episodes before that one, it's a real punch to the gut, even if you don't particularly respect the man.
Pierce, I'll level with you. I've got a great practice back home. They all come to see me. I'll bet there's no one in Bloomington, Illinois that I haven't seen naked. But it's routine.
Cookbook medicine.
Yeah. Yep. But this place, which has all the attraction of a Lance Boyle, has given me the opportunity to do more doctoring than I can do in a lifetime back in the world.
May as well talk about his replacement, Colonel Sherman T. Potter. Where Blake was hard to respect in the position he was in, but still a good man, Potter demands and rightfully receives respect from the moment he first arrives in the camp. The man was in the cavalry back in World War I, became a doctor around 1932, went through World War II, and says that after Korea he hopes to retire. He knows when to be loose and when to crack the whip, and gives everyone the respect they deserve. Which, in Burns' case, was none at all.
If Frank Burns makes any more patronizing cracks about my age, I'll take him behind the motor pool and let the air out of his tires.
He's got 3 priorities: the people under his command, the patients in the camp, and making sure he is in pretty good standing with the army when he retires. And the priorities are in that order. Oh, before I forget, the actor who was in the series was a different character before Potter was introduced, a one-off. General Steele, complete nutjob who was only shown and mentioned once. They liked the actor enough to bring him back to a much stronger role, and frankly, he's the best one they could have gotten for it.
Klinger?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
A simple welcome home would suffice. What's going on here? Why have you turned this place into a Lebanese laundry?
Oh, these are my pants, sir.
Who's the half-nude dude who's got you on more pressing duties than your own job?
Max, Slack.
Aha! I should have known by the Luftwaffe serenade.
You loud, I want to be dressed this instant.
Sit this one out, Loud. I'll tend to Brunhilde.
Speaking of replacements, here's the replacement for Burns. Major Charles Emerson Winchester III. He's high class and politically conservative. Really, considering the views of the rest of the camp, it's generally easy for him to end up in an antagonistic role.
About time, Max. Now, I want you to get busy. Fumigate this barn of an office. Get rid of that saddle. The whole place smells like trigger. And you see what this camp could be like with a man of culture at the helm instead of our old, beloved Colonel Cowpie. Colonel Cowpie. Colonel. Joshua, I knew you were here all the time.
How did you know it was me? Recognize my clippity-clop?
No, I was just having a little...
I left you in charge to conduct business, not symphonies, and not to have my company clerk working overtime in your personal sweatshop.
Oh, he's just catching up.
You and your musical Nazis are officially out of office. Now get along, big doggy, get along, and pronto.
Yes, of course, sir. Yes, I will, if you just hand me my job.
You're lucky I don't hand you your head.
But the man is complicated. He's not the cartoonish villain that Burns was. You can respect his skill, even if he's a good deal slower than the other doctors. He's more of a perfectionist than the meatball surgery in a MASH unit allows for. That's probably a side effect of being the best thoracic surgeon in Massachusetts General Hospital before the war. All in all, Winchester might be a pompous ass at times, but when it counts, he's someone to lean on when you're in trouble, and he can return whatever pranks are sent his way with a calm expression on his face.
Pierce, for once, your mockery is justified. My performance in OR today was inexcusable. I hesitated far too long before springing into action.
Do I hear right? Humility from that mouth?
It's hard to drag these words out, Charles, but you did a marvelous job.
No. I should have started the massage much earlier. I should have clamped the art. Do you really think so?
Charles, as far as I'm concerned, your patient had the best doctor in the room.
Yes, of course. You're absolutely right. I didn't want to be the one to say so, but thank you for confirming it.
You got me. We should have known. That size 45 head's a dead giveaway.
One last replacement character. Trapper's replacement. B.J. Honeycutt. He's kind of an understated character, and considering the fact that he's usually on screen with Hawkeye, a character who tries to be as loud as possible, it's easy to think he doesn't have much of a character outside of his family, his wife and daughter, who they couldn't really keep consistent. Sure, the series might have gone on for several years, but the Korean War that it's supposed to be taking place in only lasted 3. No matter when BJ entered the war chronologically, there's no way a daughter who was recently born when he left would be 6 years old when he got back. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, BJ's typically pretty calm on the outside, but a damn good prankster.
Oh, hi.
You? You're the practical joker?
Certainly looks that way, doesn't it? Would you like to help?
Sure. What do I do?
As loud as you can. Shout, air raid.
Air raid! Air raid! Air raid! Air raid! Air raid! Air raid!
He's also got an explosive temper. The kind that can make him lash out rather than viciously if he's got a target, and if he doesn't, well, then he really starts to spiral down. And what gets him to spiral down pretty consistently? When he feels in any way like his marriage and faithfulness are at any risk, and considering the fact that in one episode he started falling apart because his wife was doing well back home without him, worrying that this meant she didn't absolutely need him, well, he's enough to make me want to hit something.
Works for me every time.
I guess it's worth trying.
There's nothing so relaxing as whomping the daylights out of something.
Better something than someone.
Yeah, it's easy once you get the rhythm. Yeah, go ahead, try it.
Okay. Oh, damn, sorry, Father.
That's all right.
There are plenty other characters that feel worth mentioning, some recurring side characters, another guy who was removed pretty early on, the occasional interesting one-shot character, and while a few of them are actors I can place in movies I plenty enjoy, the fact of the matter is there's not much point in me talking about them at length. They all added to the show in good ways, especially the psychiatrist, Sidney Friedman. However, you don't see enough of these characters to get as much of a relationship with them. There might be some moments where they do or say something rather memorable, but you just can't get the same kind of emotional link with these characters as you would for the ones that get a good amount of screen time, day after day after day, and there's only one of those left. Now, to mention my personal favorite character in the series, one who wasn't planned out but was so well liked they couldn't keep him as just a one-off joke. That's right, I saved the best for last. Say hello to Corporal Maxwell Q. Klinger.
Colonel Potter, sir. Corporal Klinger. I'm Section 8, head to toe. I'm wearing a Warner bra. I play with dolls. My last wish is to be buried in my mother's wedding gown. I'm nuts. I should be out.
He is the last of the characters that went from season 1 to the last season of the show, and by God, when they thought of a man who dressed as a woman in an attempt to get out of the army, they didn't think an actor could pull it off nearly this well. I can't even begin to count the number of times I waited to see if Klinger was going to try pulling a scheme to escape the army, or just wear something interesting. Hell, sometimes he did both. For a damn long time, he tries to get out on a Section 8, which would mean being sent home because you're psychologically incapable of doing your duties. And yet, despite all the insanity, he's one of the sanest in the camp. After Radar leaves, he kind of has to get serious and become the camp's clerk. And while he does have some trouble getting into the job at first, by God, does he grow into it later.
You guys are going about this all wrong. You gotta learn to think like the Army. If you want sugar, you gotta say, pass the salt.
We want concrete. What do we ask for? Feathers?
Close. Let me demonstrate, oh outranking ones. Hello, Quartermaster. How are the kids and Mrs. Master?
And they say we do all the operating.
This is MASH 4077. Your buddy Klinger here. A 3-star is coming to visit next week. Intelligence has it that the General loves barbecued pig. Right. Got the bricks for the barbecue, but what we don't have is the cement to mix the mortar, to hold the bricks to the barbecue, to cook.
The Genghis of Khan.
We're in the presence of Sitting Bull.
As much as I'd like to talk about each and every funny moment with Klinger, or discuss some of my favorite episodes from the show in general, it'd actually be better for you guys to watch it yourselves and make your own opinions on everything. This show was started just before VHS made it possible for people to watch some of their favorite episodes on their own time, and not everyone could find the time in a day to sit down and watch it when it was supposed to air. Nowadays, though, with the internet, DVDs, and various other resources, we can watch any of these episodes. So, go ahead. Watch this timeless show that hates war on your own time. Make your own opinions of it. I'm just here to say it's worth a look, despite how old it is, and I hope it proves as important to others as it was to me.
Keep the home fires burning while your heart